Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Seattle Stitcher. My name is Megan. You can find me on Instagram as Megan_Babauta_ on Ravelry as Mama Made VM, and you can email me at theseattlestitcher@gmail.com. This is actually going to be Floss Tube Extra, where I just talk about how I dye my AIDA. So as I say, you are all very, very welcome here. This is a different location because the video quality of me sitting here doesn't really matter. It's going to be inserted clips that you guys see of me dyeing and the process that I have in that. So I guess I'm going to start off with just a disclaimer of it's not really going to be the best tutorial, okay? I'm not good at filming those. I've got little kids and a husband. They're always up and running around the house, so it's hard for me to get like the time where I'm home by myself. Like at least one child is always home with me. So that's why I'm having to do a sit down video and include these clips because like the kids and my husband and everyone in the house. So it's not the best video, right? So I apologize for that, but it's what I do to dye my AIDA, and I'm hoping you get the overall effect of how I get my fabric to turn out the way I do. And I'm also not saying that this is like the best way to dye fabric or this is the right way to dye fabric. I'm not a professional. I don't do this for a living. I'm a finance manager. So if you do have like some negative things to say, please keep them to yourself. It's literally just something I do for fun, and I wanted to put out the video because some people have asked for it. So please be kind, and let's move on into my supplies list. So for supplies, what I personally like to use is AIDA by Zweigart. I prefer that because I think that it's the softest, it softens up the fastest, and it is just really easy to get my hands on. I get mine from the Luca S store on Amazon. So Amazon, you go on there, there's a ton of storefronts. Well, Luca S has a storefront. I love their kits so much. You guys know I've been testing out some different kits. If you happen to watch my Floss Tube channel, then you do know that. And one of them is Luca S, and I found that AIDA softened up so fast, and I found that every other kit that I used that used Zweigart AIDA softened up just as quickly. So loved the brand, found a huge cut of it. I mean, it's like 5 foot by 4 foot, it's massive, and I got that for like $30. So I've just been snipping out little chunks of that whenever I find a cute little pattern and I think, oh, I could dye some fabric for that, and it's been working out great. So that's my favorite AIDA to use, not only just because of how soft it is, but also it's a cotton-based AIDA. And although a lot of AIDAs are cotton, you're thinking like, duh, Megan, you know, not all of them are. A lot of them have a synthetic material, or they're even mostly synthetic, or they're all synthetic, which is like a man-made plastic material. And that is just not gonna take dye as well. So just be cautious if you're at like a regular craft store, like Joann's, Michael's, Hobby Lobby, etc. If it's not a Zweigart, then look at the package and make sure that there's like a natural fiber in there, just because a natural fiber is going to take better. Although I will say RIT Dye does have a specific line that's like, I want to say it's like something and more, like dyeing and more, RIT and more, something like that. I don't know. I'm not, again, not my profession, so I don't really know. But there is a line that allows you to dye those man-made materials. Personally, in my opinion though, they still don't take that great. So I just stick with the cottons. It works amazing for me. I've loved the outcome of the fabrics that I've been able to get dyed up, and hopefully you guys do too. So I get the pre-mixed RIT bottle dye, as you'll see in that little video clip. All the containers I use to dye in are extremely small. Mind you, the cuts of AIDA that I dye up are very small. Like look at how tiny this is, you know? This is not very large. Again, not very large. This is one of the bigger cuts that I have done. Just a fun purpley Halloween charcoal color. So I'm just showing you to get the effect of like, I dye up very small cuts of fabric. So my containers are very small because the process that I like to use to get my modeling is scrunching up the AIDA extremely small and tight and putting it in the bottom of a cup. That seems crazy, but it works. And so I do recommend using something that's a lot smaller than the overall like size of your fabric. Just because if you do have, like, say you use a huge Tupperware to dye your fabric. Well, if you're laying that fabric flat in there, you're going to get a pretty even dye job across the whole sheet of fabric. Whereas if it's scrunched up in a ball, some of it is going to take quicker than other bits. So that's why I do that. You'll see I have like a old pho container, an old Greek yogurt container. I have an old little plastic cup. These are things that I'm not going to be using to eat out of in the future. So I just keep them aside with my dye, my RIT dyes. And so that's what I'm showing you in that clip there. That's the only dye I've ever used. I think I said that, I'm not sure. I've never used any other brands, and I have used the powder powdered packets of RIT, and I just prefer it pre-mixed. It's easier, cleaner, just much simpler for me. So that's what I use, what I like. That's my materials. I also have a little pair of tweezers. These are just plastic tweezers. I tend to go with plastics for this stuff. These are like from a perler bead set from my daughter. She had like a ton of them in a set I got her on Amazon, and I stole a pair and I use it to like pull up little bits of the AIDA if I need to. And moving from there, the first clip, I think I might have been talking in this clip because I did try to talk during these videos, but it did not work. Because all, you know, the kids, my husband, everybody being home and everything in the summer, but anywho, I tried to explain that I use the lightest color first. So essentially, just with color theory, if you dyed a piece of AIDA black, and then, or dark charcoal or dark blue, and then you tried to go over that with neon green, do you think it's going to show up? No. Maybe in the spots where there was like, you know, the fabric didn't get as concentrated of a dye solution, but at the end of the day, you're just not going to get that, the effect that you want, which is of course the lighter color to be part of the fabric. So my first piece, which I was dyeing up this neon green purple, I wanted to do the green first. The reason I want to do the green first is because it's lighter. And so you'll see me mixing the dye. I think my first time around, I'm not sure if I diluted the dye or not, but you'll see me putting it into the cup, scrunching it up, also just soaking the AIDA with really, really hot water from the sink. So I soak it with really, really hot water from the sink, scrunch it up into a ball, plop it in the container. I fill the container with almost boiling water. I have like a system my husband hooked up in our kitchen that does almost boiling hot water and cold water. And so the almost boiling hot water, I just fill it up. You can see there's a little bit of the fabric still sticking out at the top. So it is not all covered in water. I think a lot of people automatically think like, I'm dyeing fabric, let me soak the entire thing. I don't, and I've never gotten a bad effect so far, or a piece of fabric I didn't like. So this is what works for me. So I leave a little bit out, like a little tiny bit out at the top. And I've got that steaming hot water, and then I've got my dye solution, and I'm then dumping that dye solution on the sides of the cup. So I'm not dumping it right over the top of the fabric, because that piece that's sticking out on the top, right? If you dump dye right on top of it, it's gonna saturate that piece just instantly. It's cotton, it's gonna soak it all up. That's one great thing about cotton is its absorbency, right? Well, I don't want that. I'm trying to hit those bottom layers a little bit quicker, and the hot water that's in there is gonna dilute the dye even more. So you'll see me dumping this in, like if this were the cup, right? You'll see me dumping into the side where fabric isn't touching. So I'm dumping it to the sides. And then I tilt the cup back and forth to coat the top, because I do want that top piece where the white is sticking out to get coated, but not actually saturated. So that's what I do. And I let that sit for 15 minutes. Same thing I did with this darker blue taupe color. I think I used pearl gray and taupe to get this effect. And I started with the pearl gray because it was the lighter of the colors. I think I started with pearl gray. Honestly, I can't remember now. Anyways, I want to say with pearl gray because I did dilute that one, and I thought, well, that's going to give me a lighter color than the taupe would. But honestly, they're pretty close in the colors, so it was a tricky one. I wasn't sure if that one was gonna end up working out for me. So anyway, I let those sit for 15 minutes, and then when I get to the sink, you'll see me dumping that stuff out. I will say don't wear white, and just be careful when you're dumping this out in your sink, of course. I'm not sure as well. I saw someone comment asking if like RIT dyes can be dumped down a sink. I really don't know. Like I said, this is not what I do for a profession. RIT dyes, as far as I know, you can wash them in your machine, and you can dump the fabric down, as far as I know, but I'm not sure. I haven't really done a lot of research into that, so if it's something you're concerned about, then definitely look into it, but I'm not really worried. I feel like I've seen so many videos now of people dyeing fabrics and they dump them down their sink and they're using RIT dye, so I'm not saying to do what I do. I'm just saying this is what I do. So dump those down the sink. Of course, there's going to be a splash, so just be careful. You can definitely be gentler than I was, or don't wear white. So dump those, rinse them off really, really good. Hot water from the sink, rinse, rinse, rinse. And then I assess the fabric. I was really happy with this, and I don't know if I got a clip. the first image of this one, it was really good modeling on the green. And so I think I did decide to go on into the purple from there. And the purple I did dilute. Sometimes I don't dilute colors. I don't know if I showed that in this video or not, but sometimes to get like a really, really dark saturated neon color, or a dark saturated, just any kind of color, I will not dilute the color. I will just put this into the water, fill it with, you know, a little bit sticking out of the top, and I'll take the RIT directly from the container and dump it on the sides, just like I did with the diluted version, and, you know, tip the cup, and it works amazing. If I have any clips, I'll insert those as I'm talking, of course, but yeah, that's how I get like those really, really, I wish you could see better. There's like a very neon green section right here, and in person it's bright neon green. Well, that is probably a bit where it wasn't diluted dye. So anyway, I will rinse and I will move on either to the next color, which is going to be the next darkest color, depending on how many you want to layer, or it's going to be just, you know, the final effect, whatever you prefer. Because for instance, this taupe fabric, this was just diluted taupe, nothing else. It was one 15-minute soak, 15 minutes. That's all it took me to get this done. You know, 30 minutes later, I had a fabric ready to go. And I scrunched it up, put it in the Greek yogurt container, diluted taupe, dumped that on the sides, tipped it, and then left it for 15 minutes, rinsed it, it's done. I'm happy with that color. Sometimes though, I know I want a crazy fabric, you know, like this neon green and purple. So from there, I went ahead and I started with my purple. And so I think I've got some clips of me adding in some purple, and I just do that same effect where I scrunch it really small and I take the diluted purple dye. So I've used a little bit of hot water, not very much, and a little bit of the RIT dye, and I just do that. For this one, I did eventually end up where I wanted the green to come through a little more, so I kept over dyeing with the green. I would go in blotches of green, and then I'd scrunch it extremely small and put it in the bottom of that small cup. I have a clip of that as well. And I'm taking like an extremely diluted version of the purple, and that is how it gave me the effect of getting this modeling in very specific places. So when you scrunch it up, wherever you're sitting at the top is where that dye was gonna fall, because I wasn't able to put it on the sides of that tiny little cup. The cup is so small. So you'll see here, I think I have a video of me showing you that tiny little cup. This fabric is scrunched down at the bottom. I want it to be extremely tight because I'm trying to get that purple to not hit the bottom of that. And I'm only leaving this for maybe 2 minutes at a time, which is crazy, right? But it does coat your fabric so quickly that it works great for me. So I have it scrunched up in that tiny little ball, and I'm able to just put the fabric exactly how I want it. So I'd like scrunch it, and I'd have this little piece on top scrunched up in that tight little ball, and I'd pack it down into that little tiny cup. That's why I love the little yogurt containers too. If you have small ones, you can pack it into that, and then I fill it completely covered with water in this instance, just because the effect that I'm trying to get is a very like, it's concentrated but not concentrated. It's just a very specific, I want this area modeled. And so then after I dump that, I'm like, okay, I need more purple. So then I go in and I scrunched it and got this piece to be the piece that was on top, and did the same process. I did that 3 times. Again, I only leave it for 2 to 3 minutes when it's one of these really dark colors. And that's what gives me this like smoke-like modeling over the top. It's a really cool effect. It's very easy to do. Don't overthink it. Don't worry so much. Like, it's very easy to pick your placement. You scrunch that. Sorry if you can hear Malachi, he's waking up from nap. You scrunch it extremely tight, put it in a very small cup, and you want it to be compact in there. Fill it with almost boiling hot, like steaming hot water. Take your diluted dye, the darkest color that you want over your fabric, so the darkest color, and you're gonna go in and dump that right on top, and just do it for 2-3 minutes. And that's what's gonna give you that smoky effect right at the top. Because you can see, you know, where it was scrunched up just like that, and that's where the dye hit perfectly. Again, over here, dye hit perfectly. And then in the end, to get these blotches where it was like really, really neon green, I just took a little bit of the dye when it was laying in the sink, and I had some extra, and I just drizzled it over the top to get the really saturated green parts. But yeah, really happy with how that turned out. That's how I get this effect, is just really scrunched up tight in a ball, very, very tight in a ball, and making sure that, you know, either if I want an overall soak with a good modeling, heavy modeling, 15 minutes. If I want a touch of this smoky modeling with a dark color, plum purples, charcoal gray, anything dark like that, I'm not soaking for a long time unless that's my base color. Because sometimes I'll do like a, you know, navy blue as my base, and I'm gonna put charcoal gray over the top. They're close in saturation of color, like the darkness, but charcoal gray is gonna be a little bit darker, and I know that. So like, I know that it's gonna take to my fabric instantly, and I don't wanna leave it on there too long. So that's what I do. Also, I wanna mention too, just to mix the dyes really, really, really well. Because if you don't mix the dye well enough and you don't dilute it well enough, sorry, Malachi might be getting a little grumpy. I might have to go. Okay. Sorry if you can hear his little swing moving. I'm hoping he settles down a bit. But of course, I have tons of clips that I'll be inserting, so you should be able to get an idea for the process that I'm talking about. And I can add a voiceover as well if I need to. But essentially, yeah, the way that I get that modeling is just really saturating that with hot water before I put it in the cup, crinkling it up into a very, very small ball, as small and tight of as a ball as you can get, that into a cup that is tiny. It shouldn't have a lot of room to expand, because if it does, you're gonna get less modeling. So, you know, there's the tip, I guess, is just that if you want less modeling, give it more space. If you want more modeling, very, very tight space. And I think what I was touching on as well before Malachi woke up was to mix your dyes really, really well. And if not to mix them really well, then at least dilute them a little bit, especially if they're very, very, very dark colors. For instance, I'm turning off this light so hopefully you guys can see. Yeah, right here, that's color pigment that is just purely too saturated. And the second the like dye hit the fabric, it picked up all those little flecks of color and just took. Sometimes it works out, like this blotch here looks really cool, but I look at this and personally I don't love these extreme dark blotches, but that's because I didn't mix it well enough. Lesson learned. Like you can see over here, the charcoal gray is just much better mixed, and it's a much smoother, kind of watery, beautiful modeling. But it works because this dark blotch here where it looks like just DMC 310, I can totally I can work with that. I can stitch over that with a fun Halloween piece. And I will say on the opposite side of the fabric, it doesn't hit that hard. So this side, it's not as affected, but just a heads up to really, really mix the dyes very well. Sorry, the lighting got a little bit worse, so I was trying to change it around a little bit. Not that it matters much because I'll insert pictures and whatnot, but essentially just make sure you shake your dyes really, really well. And I would say for really dark colors, don't pour it directly on. For colors that are like bright, that you want a heavy saturation, for instance, I love the fabric Pumpkin King. It's an Atomic Ranch fabric, and when I first sat down to dye, I knew that I wanted to try to mimic a fabric like that. And so what I did was, knowing that there was these extreme bright orange patches in that fabric, I took the color Tangerine by RIT and I like dumped it right onto the fabric. The fabric was soaking wet, yes, but that's how I got that super saturated bits of the orange that I needed to give me that Pumpkin King effect. So if you want really, really, really saturated bits, you don't need a lot, just a tiny bit, like a tablespoon. I mean, just less than that. It's such a small amount that you need to just dump a tiny little bit. And that's what gives you those really dark, or I guess not even dark, they're just concentrated bits of the dye. But I usually I'll go online or I'll look at my stash fabrics and see okay, I like this fabric, but what's something that I would have wanted more from that fabric? And so that's how I get the ideas for dyeing and what colors I get. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. I mean, you can even see here the light bits from, this is charcoal gray here, and charcoal gray is a hard one. It always wants to take really quickly. I think I don't dilute it well enough, but I wanted this darker modeling. But it's just one of those things where sometimes it can get a little speckly because it needed to have been diluted a little bit more, or just mixed a little bit more, shaken up a little better. You can kind of see there how it's got those black dots on it. So yeah, just be careful with the really, really dark colors. You know, make sure you're diluting them at least a little and you're mixing those jars really, really, really well. And that helps out overall with the effect. Start off dyeing with your lightest color. If you know that you want your base, you know, to be like, I want a Halloween fabric and I want it to be, I do kitschy Halloween colors, you know, the neon green and purple. I know neon green is going to be brighter and lighter than purple. And if that's something you struggle with, color theory, like what really is a lighter color, go online, find a forum, find a color wheel, really focus on it, look at it. Okay, is this color brighter than this one? Is this one darker than that one? You can find a color sphere if that's what's gonna be easiest for you. Just, you know, look out for things like that. Always play around with, you know, the saturation of color, so how much you dilute it. I think that is really fun. It gives you fun effects of the color. Because I think this one I started with just like the pearl gray diluted, and then I did a little bit of less diluted to get these darker blotches. But all of this was just pearl gray. It's one color, and it gave me that fun mottled effect. So yeah, just continue to play with it. Biggest thing is small container, scrunch up your fabric really, really well. And if you want very, very specific areas to be dyed, find an even smaller cup and scrunch that fabric in there, okay? Like stuff it. And then dump the fabric over the top. That is key to getting very concentrated areas of modeling, because that fabric on the top, you don't want it to be flat. You want it to be scrunched up and little crazy too. So you want it to be wrinkly, but you want it completely covered with your water and you're dumping over. So anyway, all that'll make sense with the clips I add in, hopefully. I think this is gonna be a doozy to edit, but hopefully you guys understand my process a little bit better. There might be some clips I add on here to the end as well, if there was things that I felt like I missed, but hope you guys enjoy. And I'm not sure when my next floss tube is gonna be, because I am taking, I'm partaking in Midsummer Stitch. The girlies and I have a table. We put out a fun little reel on Instagram, and yeah, I will be there. I will be at the table. I'm super excited. Thank you so much to Stephanie of Lindy Stitches for inviting us. We are so excited, and I'm glad that most of us are able to make it at some point throughout the evening. So yeah, we're super excited for that, and that's going to be next weekend, which means that I might not have a floss tube until the following weekend, but hopefully I have lots of stitching to show you guys, and maybe this will get you through till then. But hopefully I'll catch you at Midsummer Stitch. If not, hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you next time I film a regular floss tube. All right, bye guys.